Da 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 da! What's my good chair? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out, let people know I've gone live. And by looking at me in my rat woman, all in my glory. And that is that little bit of crash, that little bit of disassociating with myself, with my life in the moment. And I knew that I had a 60-40 chance of getting a little bit of assistance in making it so I didn't have to make rash decisions just in order to keep a roof over my head. So it would be like a little bit of grace where I would have some time to actually make some good choices for myself. That doesn't seem to be the case. I'm okay. I put a little bit of money away. I was saving for a car, right? Whoever or whatever decided I wasn't saving for a car. I was saving to keep that roof over my head. And surprisingly, I'm okay, right? It's only in those interactions when you don't know. And I had a really clear, and I always forget this. I really had a really good, clear picture uh, in exactly how that all works in my system. When it happened, I got the information. When I had that conversation, it was instant. I knew just with a hello that it was, right. But I thought I tried. I did the very best that I could. And I'm okay with how I played that whole interaction, that whole adventure, right? It's in that scrambling of understanding that, we have to keep those cups full, right? We do, because we're no good to anybody else. And in that idea of keeping that roof over my head, that is keeping my cup full, because if I can keep that there, then I have no worries, right? I am solid, right? There could be nothing in the cupboards, and well, I need my utilities paid, because otherwise, right? I got to do my live shows, don't I? But I have to trust in my own lessons. And it wasn't my expectations, too, of how things were going to play out, right? Thinking, this is what I wanted. This is exactly the way it's working out, just the way it was. And then, right, the wrench in the engine, the failure, the trip up, the realization that, right, you're right. You can't just jump to the conclusions because of, I was going to say, the belief, right? Because I really believed that things were working, right, in my favor. But the thing is, they were working in my favor. They just weren't working in my expectations. And so many of the lessons that I was getting this week, and it wasn't pertaining to this, I don't think, but in little memories and going over pictures and digitizing stuff. I'm not working, so I'm trying to get these projects kind of filed away. And, you never know what goes on in the future. And, we don't have, my family, anything digitally put away. It starts with us four girls where we started posting to Facebook or YouTube or right, and again my brand, but nothing, right? Nothing in the parentage or the grandparents. And after the flood in my apartment, yes, I had a flood. Uh, a lot of my pictures, because I'm still in that 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 school, right? In the 80s and 90s and the 70s where we did film, right? Our selfies were those selfie booths, right? When you went to the exhibition and stuff, or you went to the movies and they were out on the streets, and we loved to do. Oh, I have so many of those, right? It was so much fun. But in losing track of what I'm doing, I'm just going to bring it right back to that main branch, that sometimes we get ourselves in those situations where we have expectations, right? And not thinking that we have any expectations, but when things don't work out our way and we are disappointed or we're heartbroken or we're angry, that's the realization, that's the recognition that, oh boy, yes, you did. You had expectations. And so I went into my expectations of how all of this was going to play out. And I'm thinking, you know what? No, I was okay with those expectations, because those expectations only happened because I believed, right? So I still believe, right? My problem was I was trying to steer that ship, right, with my expectations, right? It didn't work out the way I expected, but did it work out to my benefit? Some of it did, because it's all cleared, it's all done with. But I'm ready to crash. And again, like I said, I want to crawl under a rock and bawl my eyes out, and right, and at the same time I'm thinking, oh my goodness, Cindy, what have you done? But that's not true, because so many lessons in that, because I still believe that somehow it has to, because I believe I made the right decision, and I made sure that it was for the right reasons, right? The right reasons for myself, and in the my expectations of how I wanted to play out, right? The reasons that made it possible, right? But it still happened. Those cards still got played, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to adapt. We're going to conquer, right? We're going to laugh at ourselves, because we still believe, we still know this is going to play out just perfectly. And even thinking about that earlier, I had this great rush of just relief that that official stuff is over. That relief that I have to go in a certain direction and follow policies, and rightfully so, right? And go out there and pound the pavement in looking for a job that puts a roof over my head, right? And in my expectations of how it was going to play out, it just played out perfectly to my expectations, right? That I could just take my time, right? And find that perfect job for myself. And today, I kind of found a job that was, to me, I don't know, because I just gave out an old resume and stuff, but I gave them my brand so that they could actually come in and take a look at it. But when I went through the job requirements, it just, oh my goodness, it just seemed like my perfect job, right? It was a local radio station looking for somebody to get out there in the community, right? Do some mingling, have some conversations, have some adventures. And it, because these are rural communities, I'll be out on the road. It's only a 4-month contract, but oh my goodness, what a way to spend the summer, right? And get paid for it, and also be in the realm of where I want to be, right? In that entrepreneurship, in taking on jobs that offer up not just lessons, right? Just not offering up my skills, right? And they're not perfect, but I have been at it for a while, and a lot of it is in the routine of it all, the comfortable of it all, and loving what you do. So it just seemed like the perfect job for me. Sent them my resume, sent them my brand so they just can kind of take a little look themselves. But I thought it would be pretty cool. So I applied for that, and I thought afterwards, stress myself out to think, that things couldn't get better. But that job seemed like it might be something that would better move me in the direction that I would be wanting to go. Not like my last job wasn't a great job. It was a great job. I love my job. It offered so much, right? But I couldn't control the shopping, working in a little thrift store, right? I spent my time shopping. I got lots of cool things, but that's the thing too. That's another reason. Lots of things that make me believe that everything is going to be okay, right? I've got lots to move along, right? I have no attachments to anything. I have my favorite things. I've already picked out what's not leaving until I'm dead. But for the most part, I'm not attached and it can all go. And I am good with that. My expectations, okay. Maybe I overshot on that one. But everything's going to be okay. It's playing out somehow. I initiated change into my life. So here's some entertainment for maybe all of us, right? Maybe it's a lesson for me. I do believe that I, planned it out to the best that I could, right? I knew I had to leave, and I just tried to make sure that I covered the bases that I could possibly cover in a honest, right? But at the same time, making sure that legally that I am covered in that way, and also at the same time that some people also are held accountable, that I am not the only person in this story, and at the very least, you know, I didn't turn the other cheek in that. I didn't turn the other cheek so that somebody feels that they can go off and do that to somebody else without it being noticed. And secondly, I didn't turn the other cheek. And I think that those other parts of me, right? That part that I believe, right? Those parts that I've partnered up in my belief, I have partnered up in, right? Everything will be okay, right? So I'm not stressing over that. And I very easily could, right? I understand. I've kind of thrown the wrench into the engine. And it's not like I'm going to just totally disassociate, right? For the rest of my life. But a couple of days of decompressing over the last couple of months, in all honesty, that maybe something will open up. Maybe, right? I'll be able to actually have a clear signal as to what am I doing next. Maybe I'll get a phone call or an email tomorrow saying, would you like to come in for an interview? And it's that radio station that's going to send me off on little road trips, huh? Right? Getting a little bit closer in that dream job. And at the very least, have an opportunity in practicing my craft and those skills that I've picked up along the way, right? Okay, you guys. So let's pick a card. Let's have a sip of my coffee first. It has been kind of one of those days, and usually when I come in on my lives and it's later on in the evenings and stuff, I find that the energy of the day is zapped away. But that news came this morning and it just kind of zapped it all. that that moment, and I just been kind of, like I said, just kind of letting it all go, but also taking in the lesson of it, and not looking at how I got it wrong, because I'm not that person, I don't think, that would played it out any differently, even knowing what I know now. Maybe I might have. Uh, I thought I covered my bases, but I wanted to do it in a honest way that I could walk out of this and move on to the next story in my life, right? And have good feelings. And wow, like I said, my last 2 weeks, my last job, never experienced something like that before. Those kind of kindnesses and thoughtfulnesses coming from the people that I worked with, and the customers that I've been taking care of for the past 5 years now, that in that amazing job that I enjoyed so much, and it helped me to ground, because you guys know I'm like a bouquet of helium balloons and I would just float off if you gave me any length of time to sit and stew in anything. So sometimes it's good that if I just disappear for a little bit, I don't know. Maybe tomorrow will be a pajama day, right? I tried to treat myself well today, and Cindy's version of treating myself well is a pink ice donuts with sprinkle day, even though that wasn't what I had. I did cook it up today for sure with my oatmeal raisin cookies, and just not push it, just go slow, a little bit in the contemplation, a little bit in the frivolous. I kind of OD'd a little bit on those music shows that have the artists like American Idol and The Voice. I like those sometimes in the background. For the most part, no, it's just the silence in the whir of the air conditioner, or me clanking dishes, right? Because I actually enjoy doing dishes for contemplation. If you guys, have never tried that, after the kids have gone to bed, or, a moment in the evening that you were going to give to something else, uh, get into the kitchen and just start wiping the counters and start washing dishes and just sit there. It is, for especially for people who are not good at meditating, it's a good way to step into that, to that everything's okay, that calmness, to coming into yourself, that main branch of the tree, right? And we should be there, right? And in creation of the best human being we possibly can, we have to be there, right? Because we are we are most definitely the examples. And oh my goodness, Don't we need some examples to the world? Yeah, we most definitely do. As I'm listening to somebody screaming stuff down the sidewalks. It's everywhere's, right? It's everywhere's. And, I hope it gets better for not just him, but for everybody. Okay, you guys, here's the word. Oh my goodness. Here's a good word. And this is a good word because, I was thinking about this a little bit today. We got the word commitment. Commitment is the choice that has to happen. Isn't that good? And that's so true. This is how, and I was talking a little bit about this yesterday, wasn't I? About how I get things done. Give me a sip of my coffee. So good. I was talking about this yesterday and about how I get things done. If you don't hear me promise, that's an out for me, right? That's, oh, Cindy, that's something better to do. You can you can do it later, right? That's why I don't say, well, unless it's Sunday. Sunday I'll see 7:30 Central, but I'm never there on the dot at 7:30 Central, right? But if I don't commit to myself, then I don't feel so bad when I don't show up properly because I give myself that leeway because I'm only human, right? But if I commit to myself, that's me saying, this is serious. Like, this has to get done. Nobody's going to do it for you. And, right? And once I commit to it, I have to do it. Now, do I always do it right that minute? Right? Sometimes no, but quite often, yes. A lot of it, the lessons that I'm having right now is in letting things go. Hello, Eugene. I'm very good tonight. It's really funny too because I get lots of farm people that come and hang out with me. I think I would make a good, well, maybe if I had it all over to do it again, maybe I would make a good farm wife. We did live on a farm when we were kids. It was an experience. It was some tip that some government person gave to my dad when my dad was doing cabs in between his commercial fishing. And they told him to go buy some land up north in British Columbia. And within 2 weeks, he had bought some land, and nobody had lived in this land for like 50 years. And there was this shack. It was a house at one point, but oh my goodness, it was a shack you could actually see outside. When you were inside, you could see outside the snow and stuff, and my mom and dad had to cover all the walls with blankets. We were only there for 6 months, but it wasn't a great experience for me. And so when I grew up, as much as I love Mother Nature, and I take these trips in September, and I bit of a tree hugger, and oh, and again, it's Earth Day, you guys. Happy Earth Day. Put that out there. I didn't realize that being a Google guide, I'm in the top 10% reviewers for provincial parks. But local guides clean the world. The other day, I went for a walk, and I keep trailing off. I went for a walk under the underpass, and the grass and the trees have not greened up, haven't gotten full yet. The snow is just barely gone. But in looking at the ground on the hill and stuff where I'm walking, I'm just seeing all kinds of garbage stuffed underneath the branches and on the ground. And there's like Slurpee cups and water bottles and all kinds of garbage. And I says, you know what? I'm going to come back and I'm going to clean this up. I said to myself, this was just a couple of days ago. Today, I was in my Google Maps, and they send me periodically notifications and updates, and right, different things of interest to me. And this month they dedicated to local guides clean the world for April, and they want us to like take pictures or videos and show what we do to help out a little bit. Lots of people, they clean schoolyards or boulevards or parks or riverbanks and stuff, and they post it out there when that's what they want us to do, right? And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I was saying, I take these trips in September, and I'm out on the road, and when I'm out on the road, quite often I take a break. I gotta stretch my legs. Like, I'll drive 12 hours, a lot more on this past trip. It was a lot. I didn't get my timings right on this last trip. It just felt that when it said 7-hour drive, it was actually a 12-hour drive. I did a lot of driving. But, one thing that I did do is when I come to the rest stops, and the rest stops would be in that situation where there would be water bottles and garbage and people cleaning their cars from their road trips and just throwing it into the tall grass, and that rest stop is in the wilderness. It's just out on the highway, like it's not like somebody's coming by to pick up that garbage. Mind you, in the 70s, we had orbits that were in these rest stops where we could stop and put the garbage. But, saving money, I guess, having highways and transportation and cutting budgets and stuff, they were the ones that had to come in and pick up all those garbages. So a lot of the times there's right just one little pail there, and they expect us to take our garbage with us, and yet those rest stops were so bad. And I would do before and after, so I would film these rest stops, and then I would pull out my rubber gloves, my garbage bags, and I would clean these rest stops. I would stay for an hour and a half, and I would do an after video of these rest stops. Right, being in social media, I film everything. I'm a vlogger, right? And even though it's inspiration and motivation, and having these kind of conversations about emotions, and right, but these are important conversations to have, because oh my goodness, I'm looking out at the world now, and it gets really difficult sometimes to see what is digitally created and what is real. And maybe that's a little bit of, right, how I present myself in my life, because I think something so digital might be able to, well, have a little bit harder time in replicating, right, something in that genuineness that doesn't, right, that doesn't hold to not making mistakes, right? I wonder, they're probably practicing that right now, where they're introducing grammar mistakes and stuff into the technology of the robots and stuff, into the AI, right? To make it so that they are a little bit more, well, genuine, human, human like, right? Because these are human traits. We're the ones that throw those wrenches into our engines, aren't we? Right? I did exactly I did exactly that. I'll own that. And I'll own that. Well, I'd own it anyway because I did it. I made that choice. I committed to that choice, and I did it. It might have been right a year in the making. I did it a little bit later, but you know what? I could have done it a year later from now, or have might not ever had the courage that I would just take those beatings. And yeah, maybe Cindy could say, right, I can take it. But what about those other parts of me that come home at night and just totally agitated from a bad shift or getting yelled at or being unappreciated or all those emotions that were like a roller coaster in the end, right? That's not fair either. And like I said, in my belief, I'm going to own, right? My choices. We all have to own our choices, right? You own your mistakes and you own your winnings, right? Because there are lots of that too, even today, right? And getting the word, I'm thinking, man, that process was really fast. In less than a week, there was no agitation. There was a little bit of dangling heights, but they did it fast. They pulled those tubes and it was over and done with. The pain was short lived. And now my system can relax in that because that part is over. But before we start rolling into the stresses of how we're going to put the roof over our head, let's just bring that system down and appreciate what we did and trust that we did something good because I feel it. I feel the evidence. I feel, right? Like, oh my goodness, I could sleep good. I'm not feeling like I'm walking on eggshells or feeling like, oh my goodness, not being respected. That's a big thing for me, because it's always been something in my life where, whatever I said, right, even my own visible existence was a tolerance. And, it was safer for me quite often not to be seen and not to be heard. Took a while to step into this, right? It did take a while. But in that time that it took, I learned so much. And, I learned most of all that it was my experiences, all of my experiences, that made it possible that I could be sitting here right now having these kind of conversations, right? It could have been easily a different story. What if I didn't have belief in my life, right? Maybe I'd be taking a little bit of battering. Maybe I'd be turning my cheek every single day. And what I turn my cheek to might be going off and doing the same thing to somebody else because I turned the other cheek, right? I was creative. It was a wake up call, I think, for lots of us, right? Lots of lessons learned. And I'm taking in those lessons. I only make choices for myself. Nobody wants to pay attention. That's right. That's right. But I am taking in those lessons and I will do better by myself next time. And one of those lessons, I won't wait so long because I'll just do what I have to do, knowing that, when you prolong things, oh, I saw that quote today. Um, when you prolong things, you're just reliving the outcome twice, right? Because you're stressing about something that hasn't even happened yet. You're beating yourself up before something's even happened yet. And if you have to wait in that, right? What's the word you guys before? Commitment. Pull it back to the main tree, Cindy. We got this word, commitment, and I am releasing that energy, and that's what that little bit extra spurts and stuff going off all over the place. It's exactly what I want to happen. I'm going to have a good sleepy tonight. Maybe tomorrow I'll have a pajama day. Maybe tomorrow will be the day that I go to that underpass and I clean all those bushes and that little hill and make it look beautiful. And even, well, I was going to say, even if nobody, right, even notices that it's done, I'll notice that it's done. But being a Google guide, right, they're asking us to do a little posting. So maybe I'll post some of those old videos of those rest stops that I cleaned up, right? It's something I like to do. And now that I know, and I'll just use the hashtags, and then I'll post doing this underpass. And that'll be my little bit of give back in my little bit of crash and crawling underneath the rock. Not crying in that. I'm feeling pretty relieved that that part is over. We're moving into something else, right? But we'll get it done. Coming back to the word, because I'm going to commit to getting it done. And that's how I get things done, you guys, is I commit to myself, right? If I say I'm going to be here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, going to try my very best to be here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If I don't say what time I'm coming in, right, quite possibly might be at 11:45 at night, just so I can say I made it in. And I do that quite often. Yeah, we are creatives. We find ways to make things happen. We're moving forward. We're always moving forward, right? But in order to move forward, we have to throw those wrenches sometimes into our own engines, right? Because if we don't throw them into our own engines, something else is going to pick up that baton or that wrench and wrench us a good 360, right? Right to the beginning, or a 180, right? To a totally different scene. And I think I'd much rather have that, because a different scene means different lessons. And it's just a matter of just keep moving. And it maybe might work for you guys. Commit to yourself, right? It works so often. What my alarm clock. I committed 6 years ago to getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning. You guys, I'm out of bed, I would say 95% of the time by 8 o'clock in the morning. I wake up at 7. Sometimes I do contemplation. I don't meditate, but I do in the morning. I find quite often is the best time for me to be opened up to, well, new beliefs sometimes, right? Or new directions. Okay, you guys, commitment. Commitment is the choice that has to happen. Okay, you guys, have a great night. Thank you, Eugene, for coming in. For those of you who pop in later after work or coming home from work, I hope you're having an amazing day, an amazing evening. If you want to pop in tomorrow, I'll be showing up. I'm not telling you what time, because I'm going to push that off as late as I possibly can, or maybe I'll surprise myself in taking my own lessons and show up, right, a little bit earlier, understanding that, you take care of those priorities. And this is the priority in my life, right? This is never changing. Well, always changing, but always here, right? It's a better way of putting it. Okay, you guys, that's it. Going to finish my coffee, call it a night. I'll be back at it tomorrow. Maybe it's a pajama day. Maybe it's a clean the underpass day. Maybe it's a stare off into space day. I have those ones too. Those ones are good too, right? Just depends on Well, the experience, cause and effect, right? That's usually what it is. Okay, you guys, have a great night.